This is a HeadGum podcast.
Hello, Halflings! It's me, Jasper William Cartwright, and I am joined today by... Let's tell you, Olivia.
Oh, it's me.
Yeah, it's always you. It's always you second. Always you second.
I always go third.
Jeremy always goes third.
Well anymore, but...
I probably should have got it before. Hi, I'm Olivia Kennedy, but some people call me Libby Lulu.
Have we ever explained to you, Olivia, why we actually started doing this in the first place?
No, and then I also just panicked because I was like, oh, I have to come up with something funny. Oh no.
You can just say Liv. It's
100%
fine.
no,
You can just do
say
Liv.
Liv.
You can just do
What?
Liv. All the pressure is on Jeremy. Don't
I
try
do
and
have
relieve
to-
any pressure from
Oh,
Jeremy.
thank God.
So,
Maybe I shouldn't say
and...
Libby Lulu, but yeah,
Wait,
great.
I feel it would be wrong to... Let's finish the introductions, but guest who we have not named yet, would you be okay if I briefly explained to Liv exactly why we do the nickname thing, just to clear up the confusion?
And I'm Eric.
Yeah, so the deal here is the previous
Eric, if you could
host
just
of the-
take 5 and Jeremy.
Yeah,
will
just
talk through
do a
this.
quick lap. Just do a
Yeah.
quick lap.
Ooh, all right, I'm gonna just
Put
stretch
your feet
over
up,
here.
buddy. Take a pit of feet up, buddy.
Yeah. For Liv and anyone who has recently started listening to the show, the previous host, Luyanda Unati Lewis Nyao, went specifically by Unati, yet they would always introduce themselves as Luyanda Unati Lewis Nyao, but everybody calls me Unati. But the thing is, if you don't want people to call you Luyanda, just don't tell them your name is Luyanda. Just say my name is Unati Lewis Nyao. And that was what we had this conversation on air. So this you could go back and find the episode.
You can
where I
hear
was
the
like,
origins of
find
this.
the
yeah, I
discourse.
was like, why do you keep introducing with 4 names if you just want one? Like, just cut off
Whereas
all
I
names
introduced
prior.
with 3, and I want all 3 every
Yes,
time.
Mhm.
Jasper William Cartwright.
Exactly.
No, it's a good name.
Every single time.
Strong name.
Every time.
And so
Oh yeah,
I
Mom.
started.
Oh hey, yeah, no, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. And so, sorry,
haven't
Eric, could
been
you
on-
mute yourself?
Eric, could you
Could you
come
mute
I
in?
yourself
haven't
real
been on
quick
New York
if you're going to be on the call?
in a while. No, I should try that recipe. You're right.
And
So,
Jeremy, please, for the love
Jeremy-
of God, introduce yourself.
Jeremy Cobb, but Gloss and Gadgets calls me Heart Cobb.
Oh,
Cobb.
so sweet. And yes, you are, Jeremy. But today I'm very excited to announce this very exclusive announcement that you absolutely had no idea about previously. That today we have a special guest. He is the DM for Join the Party and the head creative over at Multitude Podcasting Studio. That is right. Eric Silva. Welcome to Three Black Halflings. Are you still on the phone to your mum?
Mom, you need to put in twice as much salt. They don't tell you to put in enough. Oh, I gotta go. I'm doing a podcast thing. Hold on.
Yeah,
Hey!
At least the crowd was just going
all
crazy.
the mom stuff. Like there was some personal things in there.
Yeah, it's fine. We can go back and we can correct that. That's fine.
Yeah, if you could cut out all of the places where my mom tried to tell me that my wedding was about her, that would be really.
Yeah, is she actually gonna
Outright
object?
said it.
Is that a thing? Is she gonna follow through on that? Is she gonna object?
Well, unless she gets to wear like a full gown and her face is somewhere, like a fat head of her face is put up somewhere.
All the cushions on the chairs have your mum's face on them. That's how it's gonna work, I think.
Sponsored
And
by
everyone
Rita
gets to take them
Silver.
home. Yeah.
I'm
Sponsored
also
by Rita
imagining-
Silver, who raised this child and created and shaped him into the person who was able to marry today.
It just says you're welcome to on every pillow. Just you're welcome.
I'm
Without
literally
me,
imagining
you'd have
her
nothing.
sat at the back of the aisle and just like on like a throne and just like holding up like a thumbs up or thumbs down, just like will it go ahead or will it not? Very emperor like.
Every few minutes, we have to pause to look back. It's
Make
like, here's
sure.
another thumb. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say that my mom is delightful and she's not doing that.
Absolutely.
But I don't say that because I know for a fact she won't listen to this because I've been doing Join the Party for like 4 or 5 years now, and she still just like doesn't understand what's happening. To the point, we went to a live show of a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. She lives in Nashville. I was visiting her. It just so happened that there was a live show happening, and we went. So she like watched one happen. And she's like, oh, I get it. They like do stuff and they tell a story and there's some games. So she gets it. And like now she knows how to listen to podcasts on Spotify and she wants to be on all of my podcasts. But she still doesn't understand what I'm doing here.
Well, first of all, she's always welcome on Three Black Halflings. And second of all, I 100% understand with multiple family members being like, I listened to the most recent episode. 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Glad you're having fun.
Yes. You're enjoying yourself. You get paid. You get paid for that? Okay.
For this?
Are you sure it's not demonic?
Yeah. Is your soul safe?
No.
No. Anyway, speaking of Eric Silver, our guest.
I thought you were going to say, speaking of keeping your soul safe.
No, do you know what? I went there.
We've invited Eric Silver
I reached for that transition and then immediately saw what it was and went, no.
I saw you do it. And I'm like, oh, Jasper, that was good. I like that. You know, there's like those lists that come out that it's like, if you want to go to Christian heaven, you have to avoid these things. And there's like Harry Potter on there, tarot's on there, like tarot chips are on there too. And so we're like, so it's like Dungeons and Dragons and Jews. So like, no, you were there. You were right there.
You're right there. But so for anyone who hasn't actually already heard of Eric, which would be completely and utterly wild, you have to go back and listen to Eric DM for us here on Three Black Halflings, the Maximum Carnage one-shot, which was genuinely some of the most fun I've had playing D&D. I played the Influencer, a truly diabolical supervillain, and it was absolutely hilarious, and it was indeed wall-to-wall carnage. But
hold on, before Jeremy, please do your voice for
Oh,
that
yeah.
you did.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah,
yes, let's go.
I played Sam, aka Samael. I'm a fellow who lives at home with his parents and has a pet goldfish, and I'm also an avatar of death.
Oh!
with a horse that feeds on the bloody notes. That one,
Yes.
honestly, in the episode, I had so much fun actually mixing that so that Philip had a truly demonic voice, and it was really just Eric in a demonic voice going, Papa. It was really quite fun.
Papa, I need some oats.
I
Feed me
need the bloody
dead
oats, Papa. But Eric, for those of our audience who doesn't know you specifically, we have to ask you the question which we start off with all of our guests, which is your origin story. So please, Eric Silver, tell us, where did you first get into nerdy stuff and TTRPGs?
Wonderful question. I have
Thank
been a
you.
big fucking nerd my whole life. I guess it just kind of happened. My mom very much opened the door to just reading in general. She was an English major in college, and she wrote her thesis on F. Scott Fitzgerald, which I didn't realize before, but but at the time, it's like when you think about one book or one author for such a long period of time, that is where the shit posting starts. And I didn't realize it. Like, she was telling me like shit posts of like literature for a very long time. Have you three read Great Expectations?
Yes.
I haven't read it, no.
Okay, Great Expectations, big buildings, Roman, very large book. Dickens, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, Dickens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, he's one of those fuckers.
Charlie
over
Dix.
there.
Yeah,
Chuck Dix.
Yeah, one of them guys.
Chuck
Yeah.
Dix. That's what we call him. That's his nickname. It's a street name. Chuck Dix.
Street.
Basically, a young boy getting money from a benefactor to become like a better person, and his benefactor is this woman named Miss Havisham. And Miss Havisham is like 90 years old, and she's always wearing her wedding dress from because she got run out on the altar, and she did not cope with that well at all.
Clearly,
And
she's still wearing the wedding dress.
Yeah, like it's moldering over. It's so nasty. It's so
Ooh.
incredibly
Oh,
nasty.
That would be so insulting every time somebody refers to her as Miss Havisham. She's just like, I know, you don't have to remind me.
Yeah,
I
rub it in.
know.
Come on.
Like, luckily, she has enough money to like ruin their lives if that ever happens.
Oh, okay, good. Go on. Good.
So there's a moment in the book where she's like, oh, yes, I am giving you a lot of money. You need to become a man and all this stuff. Where like she's standing so close to her fireplace that it lights on her wedding dress lights on fire.
Yeah.
And like my mom and I, for a very long time, would just like shit post at each other. I've now realized, just like make jokes and be like, oh, yeah, like Miss Havisham lighting up on fire. You want with your wedding dress, you don't want to light up like that. And stuff like Gatsby. So like I read so much as a kid. I like constantly reading. My mom still tells me And in 4th grade, I got lunch detention for reading during class, and then the
wow.
entire lunch detention I was reading. I think it was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, if I remember correctly, because of that the weird fucking cover. The thing I still remember all that stuff. So yeah, no, I was reading a ton, and I feel like I was doing that. And then of course, like I picked up other nerdy stuff. I was playing a ton of video games. I was writing poetry. I got into that a lot in high school. And yeah, just like lots of stuff like that. I have a twin brother. I don't know if
wow.
What?
Oh wow! What's your
Whoa,
brother's name?
identical?
No, we look very different. My brother,
Okay.
my brother's like 5'10" and like 140 wet. They're very different.
It's so wild when
but-
somebody reveals they're a twin because it's just like there are 2 of you. Oh, cool.
Yeah,
okay.
whoa.
Yeah.
No, we were just issued at the same time. They were definitely.
You were definitely limited edition,
Oh,
but they were
yes.
just released at the same time. Sure.
I have actually a story on this topic. When
Ooh.
I was at drama school, there was every year my specific course would do a site-specific like immersive show, and that year the year above me were the ones who were putting it on, and unbeknownst to the course director, one of them had an identical twin brother.
Oh my god.
And so he walked out to see the audience and saw what appeared to be one of his actors just out of costume hanging out 15 minutes before the show. And my course director is many things, but calm under fire is not one of them. And so he absolutely loses it at this guy. Fuck you. And like you get this dude who is just like, what? And has no idea who he is. Meanwhile, backstage, I guess the brother is like, wow, can't wait for my brother to come see this show. It's gonna be real exciting.
He's just getting berated by this guy he does not know.
Yeah. It's
Wow,
really
I'm so
anxious. I'm so
glad
glad I
my
talked him out of the
brother-
house.
Wow, I'm so glad that my brother, who never comes to my theater performances,
Yeah.
is finally coming to see
Exactly.
me. It's going to be really nice for me to see him out in the audience. I hope nothing bad
I
happens.
think he came from Wales too. I think he came all the way
Oh.
to London from Wales to see this play.
And the thing is, knowing most course directors like in England as well, I can't imagine that this guy played it off very well either. I can imagine that he was probably still like, well, you shouldn't be just talking or whatever. You know what I mean? I can imagine him just
Grow
being
a
like
beard.
super weird and defensive about it, even though he
It's your
knows he's clearly in the
responsibility
wrong.
to make
Yeah.
yourselves look different. You should have grown a beard, a mullet, and he just walks away.
Something, something.
Yeah.
Bro, you should make your faces different. Wow.
Yeah, that's exactly
What if you should gain
it.
weight?
Fix it.
Yeah,
Gain
exactly.
weight.
Gain weight. Gain substantial amounts of weight, please.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, I have a twin brother, and we spent a lot of time playing games together. It's always nice having someone to compete against. We would play a lot of MMORPGs. Like we would have 2 computers. He had a laptop. He was very techie very early on. He was really into MapleStory. I don't know if y'all remember that, but it was like one of those like online MMORPGs where like where people like taught themselves how to like dupe items and stuff like that. So very early stuff. We played like Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2. Like we spent a lot of time doing that stuff. And then yeah, I was just like playing video games and a lot of that stuff all throughout high school. In college, I got really into Poetry Slam. I set up the NYU Slam team when I was in college, and we won like 3 championships.
Whoa.
Did you guys
wild.
repeat? Would you go back to back?
It was like I think over 4 years we won 3 times because like the
Okay.
first year we had just started. And then like I went to grad school also at NYU, so maybe that year they also won. But like yeah, we won the college championships multiple times.
I can't believe we're here with a champ. You know what I mean?
know.
Like, you
Yeah.
think you're just in a room with a
Finally.
normal
Time
guy,
champ.
and then he busts out the Super Bowl ring. You know what I mean? It's just like, wow.
Yeah, by my massive ring, I have.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
3
huge
rings.
slam
Poetry ring.
You ever think
Slam
about
ring.
going back
Yeah.
to college just to get back in the game, man? Complete the set, get a whole hand's worth of rings.
Yeah, just
gotta
so
do
that I
the
can
vibe,
talk about
bro.
I can talk about my trauma in 3 minutes with some other 22-year-olds who are talking about their trauma. I have my trophy is on my desk.
I was gonna say, do you have like a memento or something, like a framed
You
picture of you on a
show it to
stage?
us. We
Or
gotta.
something?
Yeah,
we
no, I
gotta-
will grab
We
it.
have to screenshot this thing.
Yeah, we
Release it.
absolutely have to. We're releasing
Oh,
it,
I will
of course.
100% grab it. It's on my desk. I will.
Amazing.
Oh my god, yes.
Absolutely amazing.
And it's funny now thinking about it, the slam community is very similar to the tabletop RPG community, like the indie tabletop RPG community, in terms of like getting things that are recognized on the internet. This was around the advent of like YouTube channels, people being very like self-aware of their YouTube channels. This was like 2011. So if they would clip a video and put it on YouTube, there was like a few channels that would do this, and then someone's poem would go viral. So there was very much like a trying to get recognized on the internet sort of thing. This was also early Twitter at the same time. So a lot of that stuff about like trying to recognition of creative work, and then like, is there any money here? Like, can my job be full-time poet? Was always like a thing that was there. It's like, well, I keep competing and I keep doing well in these contests. Is this a job? Can I tour? Would I need that fame to tour? So very much of what we see in indie tabletop RPG Twitter right now. So like seeing going into that, I'm like, oh, I recognize this. This was me.
I've done this before.
Uni Oneonta and doing a competition and sleeping on someone's floor. That is a university in upstate New York for all of you British people. For all of you British people.
Thank you so
Sincerely.
much.
And most Americans, I feel like I've never heard of this place.
You definitely would not. It's like 4 hours north of New York City. It's part of the SUNY, the state New York schools. So yeah, it was stuff like that. And then I had always been interested in tabletop RPGs, especially in the boom that happened right when I was getting out of college. That was around the time that Critical Role and the Adventure Zone started, when Community had their tabletop RPG shows. I think the first season of Stranger Things had started. So I very much was part of the boom. The only version of D&D I've ever played is 5th edition, but I was there when it first started. And I'm like, I would love to play this. This sounds fun. I'm creative. I would love to act, like whatever. So I played one game with a group of people who used a grid, in which I've never played with someone who had like an actual grid mat that I'd done before. I played Eerie Gold Bottle, who is a halfling ranger, because I wanted to ride a mastiff into battle. I had read the player's handbook all the way through, and I was like, oh, small creatures can ride big dogs, so I'm gonna play a small creature, so that eventually when I get to level 3 I will. We played one session, I was level 1, I did like one thing and I got eaten by a harpy.
Oh no.
Oh, that's so
So
savage.
tragic.
No.
That is tragic.
It was
R.I.P.
tragic. And then I had tried to get into a different game with some friends of mine, especially a show. I had been on a show called Spirits, which is Amanda McLaughlin and Julia Schaffini's show on Multitude. But that was when it first started. I had done one of the first episodes of Spirits, which was about golems, and they were like, yeah, we want to play D&D. Do you want to play? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then Julia was going to DM, and then she's like, I don't want to DM, this is too much work. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm DMing now.
It appears to be me.
It is
Okay.
and I loved those games. Were really fun. We played like a few sessions. We had a lot of time, and I kind of figured this out. I was listening to the Adventure Zone back when they were still doing balance. It was really fun. I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting my head around it. I still remember the time when I realized I might be good at this was that I had to scrap a session because someone couldn't make it. So I was flipping through the monster manual and like, fuck, I got to come up with something. And I saw the Koatoa, the little fish dudes who run around, and if they all believe it enough, they create a god. So I'm like, oh, that sounds like startups like asking people for what they want, like a focus group. So I had like an adventurers focus group pulled together, and I had them like write out this stuff while we were doing it, like a game within a game. And then they had pulled this stuff together, and the Koatoa turned it into a god that then destroyed like a town that they had to deal with. And I made one of my players cry because of the scene at the end. Like, her character saw this like god that was like part displacer beast as part of like her father, and then I made her cry, and that was also Julia. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm good at this.
Yeah.
It's just like the moment you make a player cry is it's tip top, really. It really is.
You're constantly reaching for it.
Yeah, always. And you feel like as well, and it's absolutely like anything in life. If you reach too hard, it stops. Like as soon as you sense it and you push for it that little bit too hard, people shut off. You gotta trust yourself. You gotta trust the moment. You gotta be in it. It's a fine line. It's a fine balance making a player cry, but it's those sweet tears. Oof,
Yeah,
man,
I
tastes
realize that
good.
this is like the only context that you're like, oh yeah, I really wanted to make that person cry. I'm so glad I did. Yeah.
Hey, I grew up with a little pot and collect the tears of my player. Like, yes,
So
I've got
the
them.
other, ironically or coincidentally, the other arena in which you want to make somebody cry is also called DMing. Dungeon Master. It's just a varied.
My
Right.
wow! I love the way you waited just for Eric to have a sip of water as you dropped that joke as well. Well timed, Jeremy.
Well, don't worry, Jeremy. It wasn't giving me a spit take because I did thumbs down.
Yeah. He just did a thumbs down on this audio podcast. But I'm glad we've
Eric was
clarified.
thoroughly unimpressed.
Yeah, and then from there, we started joining the party. I met Brandon, who is our player and our editor and sound designer, at a job that was so fucking terrible. But he also taught me how to edit and how to record audio. And then we both were like, hey, we both like the Adventure Zone. But like those first few episodes are so rough. What if we made a show that was like tried to be good from the jump with all the learnings that would happen there? And that's what we tried to do. And that's when Join the Party was born. We got Amanda on board, who I'd known from Spirits. And then everything that we had done there eventually became Multitude, which is a podcast collective and studio, and a lot of the stuff that we've been doing and learning on Join the Party has been the basis of our job now, like full-time podcasting. And Multitude is just out here, man. Thank you.
No, it's such a cool thing, and it's such a it's the end goal, right? I think the idea of being able to do this full time and help other creatives do their stuff and do what they're good at as well. I think that's a really, really cool and very admirable thing to be doing. And just quickly jumping back to what you were saying about DMing as well, I think that might have said this before, but I don't know if you found this, but I think there's a real sweet spot of like of when you go to start DMing, when it's like just enough to be able to do it, but not enough to be like, holy crap, this is terrifying. I'm not going to do this. There's so many rules. You know what I mean? I feel like if it sounded like you were really in that zone, in that sweet spot of like, yeah, I think I could do this. I'll wing it. And then you get
Orson Welles, Citizen Kane sweet spot, where like you may have directed a couple of era-defining plays, but you haven't made a movie before. But how hard could it be?
Yeah.
And so you just try a bunch of stuff, and then who knows? And maybe it ends up being great.
And then it's great.
Give me 1 second. I'm tweeting that Jeremy thinks I'm Orson Welles. Give me
I mean, look, you got the beard. You got the beard and
You got the beard. You're
on your way.
That's all you need.
Oh, and I'll talk about champagne while drunk. It's fine. There's drinks.
I actually love the idea.
Something farm remembers. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
I absolutely love the idea that from now on, Eric Silver just has the quote, kind of like Orson Welles, like Jeremy Cobb next to everything.
I'm reading this right now. Just give me 1 second.
Please put it in your Twitter bio.
That would be so funny.
He's immortalized forever.
Orson Welles of podcasting.
That's great. That's great.
Kind of like Orson Welles of podcasting.
Yes, he's doing it.
And tweet.
And I love the idea this isn't going to come out for weeks and people are going to have no context for why the hell this happened. And then suddenly going to be like, oh right. Okay.
That's what we in the business call a tease.
Yeah, exactly. All your audience was sat there thinking, I was worried. I thought we were going to have to like call Eric, check he was okay. I mean, it's a bit of a thing, a statement to make.
No,
Oh, sorry. I apologize. I cut you off then.
No, go ahead. No, but yeah, from there, here on Three Black Halflings are like where all of my interests can spiral outwards. Like I feel like I want to talk about any of the various things that we have. Like we can talk about the Jewish stuff that we've talked about, just DMing, podcasting in general. It's just like, it's very loud. The police are coming to get me in New York City.
Turns out the police in New York not a big fan of Orson Welles.
Yeah.
So they found you
very offended by the Magnificent Ambersons. They were like, nah, he shouldn't.
No.
They shouldn't have even released like the edited version of the movie. It should have been just
Should've
should
been
have been
canned.
scrapped entirely.
Should've
Oh,
been
that's what the New York City police are doing. They're looking for the
Yes.
original cut. That's why when you call them, they don't do
They
do
don't
fucking shit.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
Oh,
with other things, yeah.
truly wild. But maybe we should steer away from one risky topic of the New York police and go to another one, which is Jewish representation in TTRPGs. How about that one?
So
that
much
was a
safer, and
decent-
everyone's gonna agree with me. Yeah.
that was a decent twist there, or decent transition.
Nice
Thank you
segue,
very
yeah.
much. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Job.
But no, I genuinely, this is something that I was very keen to talk to you about. Jeremy had first suggested having you on to talk about a little bit about this because I definitely know for a fact it's one of a blind spot that I have. I've sort of started in the last few years, as I think a lot of people have, to try and work out where these blind spots that we may have are and exist. And so I think, it would be incredible to talk a little bit about that. And I guess specifically as well about the use of golems in D&D and what they have kind of been morphed and turned into by Wizards of the Coast.
Absolutely.
that'd be a
I would
fun
love
place
that.
to
And
start.
first of all, I want to say that this show very much helps me with my blind spots. So thank you for all that stuff. I just want to say.
The blind leading the blind.
Yeah, exactly. Here we are. We're
Look
just
at
out
that.
here doing it. And,
Cycle of
but
goodness, yeah.
hey, look, it's a safe space for the blind to fall over. There's lots of padding on the floors. It's all fine. It's all fine.
Wonderful. So about a year ago, I wrote an article for Alma, which is a really wonderful, like, millennial Jewish blog called Dungeons and Dragons Has an Antisemitism Problem, where I kind of laid out a lot of this stuff. Basically, when D&D took fantasy stuff wholesale from Lord of the Rings, it grabbed a lot of the stuff that was in Lord of the Rings that was unexamined because
J.R.R. Tolkien was a racist. Let's be honest.
Yep.
Let's put it out there and let's just call a spade a spade. You know what I mean?
Listen, I don't want to say that on behalf of other people. I only have the thing here. It's just like, you never know when you run into a person, but like every single year I watch. Every single Christmas, I watch the extended cut of all the movies, and then I read all the books.
So
from
do
back
I.
to front and
Yeah,
front.
yeah, yeah.
Great movies.
They're great movies. I love them, but the dude was a racist.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say I don't think it would be fair to call him a racist necessarily relative to the other people that he was around by
Yeah,
all that much.
Sure.
I feel like it'd be more accurate to say he was a person who was alive in Britain in like the first half of the 20th century and very
Exactly.
much drew from that in order to
Mhm.
make stuff up,
I
which
wanna-
is, racist.
Specifically, what you're saying, Jeremy, is that he compared to Nazis, because that's when he was writing.
Yes,
For
that's very
example,
true. Compared
when
to them.
there's a story of him, of like the Nazi Germany reaching out to him and asking for like a translation of Lord of the Rings to turn into Germany. He's like, no, I love Jews. They're my friends. I wouldn't do that. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. Like, so like, yeah, compared to the Nazis, no. But yeah, exactly what Jeremy said is the race essentialism, how every race in fantasy equals an actual type of person or race in the UK in 1920s. That is kind of what we're reaching to.
Yeah, I will definitely. I was definitely being very, very reductive, mostly just because it's entertaining for me at least. But I completely
Hurt
understand.
people's feelings.
Well, it's definitely not my intention at all.
Jasper
No.
Cartwright confirmed for sadist.
Jasper's on that list of you not getting into Christian heaven. Is
Yeah.
Jasper
Association with
reducing?
Jasper Williams.
I think there's a number of reasons probably why I'm on that list, so I'm fine. If this is what finally gets me on the list, okay. It was a long time coming, honestly.
So yeah, specifically, like I said, the fantasy race equals type of person in real life. One is the dwarves are Jews. Like J.R.R. Tolkien said specifically, the dwarves are Jews. And like there are quotes, especially when you realize going from The Hobbit to Lord of the Rings, like the dwarves are very, very ornery and stubborn and jerks in The Hobbit. And then like Gimli and all those folks are just like nicer. And it's kind of like Tolkien understanding Jews, especially as Europe just goes to the 1930s and 40s, be like, oh man, those people are going away. I wonder why. So like it kind of saw his stance is softening up a little bit there. But then of course like D&D took that wholesale. We know that specifically because there was a lawsuit from the Tolkien estate telling D&D to stop doing that, and that's why halflings are called halflings and not hobbits. That's why tree ants are not called or instead of Yes, and so things like that. Literally, there was a lawsuit, so we know that specifically. So the thing is about, and then in 5th edition, like in the world now, books are being sold now that has a lot of the stuff, even if they tweak this, and people have been saying stuff to Wizards of the Coast for a very long time. I think the company needs to do a lot more about shit all the time about various issues. But like this is definitely something of their blind spot, definitely a blind spot for them that they just like haven't examined, because I think that they're like, we appease the minorities who want me to do things. We're done. Stop it. Stop telling me to do things. I'm a company. Let me make money. Go away.
You've done one, you've done them all. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like we already did the things you told me to. Like we changed. They're not explicitly gypsies anymore. And what else do you want? I don't know.
Pick whatever ability scores you want, okay? Fine. Fine.
Exactly.
You happy now? Leave me alone. I'm going back to bed.
Yeah, exactly. So like the dwarves are the dwarves, and like we can't really move away from that because it's like, yeah, they live in mountains, they like gold. I don't know. I'm not gonna get you to change this, but I think the thing that really gets stuck in my craw about this is the use of golem, the thing that Jasper has talked about. So for those of you who don't know, the golem specifically is a creature from Jewish mythology. During the pogrom, which is like in Eastern Europe, in like during the Crusades and all the times of like where all the Christians tried to get the Jews out of the various places in like the 18th century, there is a story of a rabbi in Poland. There are various golem stories, but the most famous one is like they went down to the river, they built a defender from the mud of the river banks, put the word of God on their head, and the golem beat back all of
Hey.
It's
a very different story.
A very different story. Totally different story. Fought back against all the people who were persecuting the Jews in the city at the time. So then, golem in the monster manual is pretty much interchangeable for construct, or like thing made out of material which is alive and mindless. I actually brought the monster manual with me because I really want to read some of this out because it's really ridiculous.
Yeah, please do.
Story time.
Please
Yeah,
do.
Yeah.
Golems are made from humble materials, clay, flesh and bones, or iron and stone. But they possess astonishing power and durability. A golem has no ambitions, needs no sustenance, feels no pain, and knows no remorse. An unstoppable juggernaut, it exists to follow in his creator's orders, and it protects or attacks as that creator demands. Not the same. Like you can't. It's pretty much just like, and then of course they insert, because this is what Wizards does. This is what D&D does. Fucking take something from folklore and puts it into like their planar mythology. They say that you need to build it out of whatever you have there, and then you need to take a spirit from the elemental plane of Earth. Like, no, you can't just say that. You can't just take your planar shit and put it into my thing. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Also, golems are not constructs. There's a word for this in D&D. It's called construct, where it's something that's made and it has like some autonomy. Maybe it follows orders, but it's not a humanoid. It doesn't have like it's not a spirit. Like Warforged, they're constructs, and like robots come from golems. That's like a tradition. Is that like the idea of the robot was come out of like Eastern Europe as like a metal golem. Actually, I have a tattoo of a little robot, Jewish robot golem on my arm here.
Very cool.
So the thing that bothers me is that like there is a word for it already. It's called construct. You didn't need to do it golem, but now since you put it in your game, everyone keeps calling shit anything that is made out of something and mindlessly follows a master's commands a golem. That is not what a golem is. A golem is imbued with the spirit of a deity. You specifically Jewish, but if you want to put it in whatever fantasy thing you want, like at least the inscribing the idea of language, creating life into this thing, and it is defending the people from which created it. There is very much a minority group needs protection from a rabid and attacking majority, and then the golem is the thing that turns the tide and defends the people. So like if you incorporate those things into what you're doing, then you got something there. Also, like the golem itself, like it deals, although it does follow the master's commands, there is always going to be some conflict there of being able to do that stuff. So there is some sort of like uh autonomy or awareness of being told I need to do something, but it is certainly not mindless. It's not the juggernaut in this way, which they explicitly say in this first paragraph here, and that really it really bothers me. And I think it's endemic of the way that Wizard of the Coast takes things from various people's folklore and jams it into their mythology to make it fit or to make it sound cool. Because you can make it sound cool without whitewashing it and saying like, no, Bahamut was there. So Tiamat was there. Sorry.
Yeah, this is. I was gonna say the same thing because I've definitely noticed a lot of this throughout various different cultures. It draws from various different cultures, and it kind of. We actually did an episode on this recently with sensitivity consultant James Mendes-Hodes, and we were talking about how when you draw from things that are so obviously something, you have to be more sensitive to kind of the way that you depict that thing and how you choose to kind of portray it. And you can't, and I think you do absolutely, like you said, get into this really weird situation where if you take the bits that you want, you cherry pick the cool stuff, or, you know, in quotation marks, the stuff that you like, and then you throw away the rest, you are just left with this really kind of icky, weird kind of feeling where you're not paying like homage to this thing, you're not paying tribute to this thing, and kind of giving Jewish people like, you know, a little bit of representation, which probably wouldn't be a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? For a Jewish person to be able to play and to be able to summon a golem and have it protect their, you know, help them win in a battle or you know, protect their town and their people. I think that would actually be a really positive thing. But instead, you kind of just get this thing where you spread a bunch of kind of like half-truths about something over here, and all the Jewish people are kind of let down and slightly pissed off about it, you know? And so I think we've definitely discussed it a lot, and I get by the sounds of it, you're in a similar place where it's just like, it's just a lot of half stuff. You know what I mean? You can take this as the inspiration, but you can absolutely, when you've gone this far away from it, call it something completely different. It's a construct. It's a mindless, you know, juggernaut, whatever it is. It's absolutely not it's a robot. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely not that. Don't do this weird halfway house where you sort of still take the name and then, like, I literally was researching the other day and was like, Tiamat is just the name of a Babylonian goddess. Okay, that feels, okay, strange. Sure, fine. Has absolutely no relation to said Babylonian goddess whatsoever. It's an odd choice. It feels like a very odd choice for me.
I got two things. So the first thing is, it did not occur to me, this connection, until you just pointed it out. But the first time I ever heard the like a golem story, it was Rabbi Lowe and the Golem of Prague.
That's the one. Yes, that's the one.
Oh, okay.
And then the word robot is a Czech word. So like when you point out like the connection, it's like, oh yeah, like the most famous golem story comes from the Czech capital, and then out of that, eventually you have Czech people coming up with an idea based kind of on that, where you have robots, because it originally means slave, which is really closer to what that's what the Czech word means, and that's closer to what the D&D is doing.
Yeah, there was a play from like the early in the turn of the century, the 1900s, from the Czech Republic, called the RUR, which was like an android in so many ways, like the first time a robot was in media, and that is where it comes from. Yeah.
Okay. The second thing was, it's funny you mentioned Bahamut, because Jasper and I have been doing some research on dragons and so forth recently, and it didn't even occur to me until you said that, and also slightly earlier today, that Bahamut is in D&D is based on an actual figure as well, who is probably a perversion of the Leviathan. Like they accidentally got the names wrong. Like it's Bahamut is descended from Behemoth, but Bahamut or Bahamut is like a fish thing, which is clearly more of a Leviathan reference. So it's like a Middle Eastern sort of like descent. Like if you're just following the dissension, you have like the Middle Eastern Leviathan or Jewish Leviathan getting turned into another like, I guess, creature more accurately in Middle Eastern religion and mythology and so forth. And actually, that's kind of where Tiamat, like the Tiamat is, you could argue, is like a parallel in some ways to Leviathan, in that both of them are like examples of Chaos Kampf, in that Leviathan is said to have lost a battle to Yahweh, the Mesopotamian storm god who eventually was combined with El and becomes the Jewish god in Judaism. And Tiamat fought Marduk.
What Christians say is supposedly the name of God from the Torah. I want to be very clear. But you're making the point, Jeremy, that I think that you're circling here is also is the flattening of so many folklores in various pagan folk, like especially Babylonian and the other things that you've been mentioning. It is just the flattening to fit into the thing that you're looking for, which is similar about what's happening in the Monster Manual, or which I think is kind of the thing that we're reaching for, is that the people who created the Monster Manual just like took the stuff. It's like, yeah, I do want. Give me some of that Norse shit that I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me some of this other shit, and not examining, like, or I guess realizing what they were doing in the 70s, but like at least the massive company that keeps pumping this out for dollars. Like, let's at least examine it. This is why people want your stuff to change, because you're profiting off of it. You keep selling it. And saying that, like, well, I'm going to keep fucking pumping out 3 books a year and asking you for dollars, but the least you could do is, like, not put a thing in that I think is wrong. Or, like, is like, hey, this is your tradition of of the text of where it came from in the 70s. Like, it's not great. It doesn't make me feel good.
It's such a shame as well, because like people will be putting these monsters into their session and stuff and not even thinking about the fact that it might really offend somebody when they're like they put it into a game. And it's like, just let people be aware of what they're creating and what story they're telling would be quite nice.
If the expectation, it's very tricky, because the expectation of D&D, you can play whatever game you want with any tabletop RPG. You can play whatever game you want at your table. But like, if you're selling a book that someone is supposed to buy and use the Forgotten Realms mythology, like, look at it a little bit. I 100% agree with you, Olivia.
I think a lot of it as well is just a little bit of, and this sounds more harsh than I intend it to, but it's like a little bit of laziness. Do you know what I mean? It's like a little bit of laziness in the sense that they had so much content there, right? Packaged, ready to go. You got Lord of the Rings, you had this, you had, it's everything that was made in the 70s, everything that's made in the 80s, 90s, and it all kind of built up. And it's just like, hey, we got a great library of stuff. Let's just reprint this, put it in a book, send it out. It'll be fine. Instead of like, okay, why don't we get a team of people together, look through all of this shit and be like, okay, what actually in here do we need to re-examine? Do we need to change? What is, like, it is baffling to me, the idea that Wizards of the Coast, owned by Hasbro, doesn't have the capabilities to have, to hire a Jewish person and be like, right, can you have a look through this? Hire someone who is an expert on, like, South African, traditions, literally for, like, a couple of weeks, and just say, here's some of our materials. You're an expert in this kind of stuff. Can you have a comb through and see what stuff we would need to change? Because I think having done this show has really illuminated just how easy it is. Like, we always trying to give like very simple solutions. Like, you've already given a very simple solution, right? If you want to avoid the golem thing, if you want to avoid potentially playing on this kind of, like you said, like flattened kind of weird version of Jewish mythology and history, you don't have to use this word. You can find other ways around it. You can use constructs, for instance, or you can use, you can go much more specific to the sort of traditional telling of what a golem is, etc. And I think that's always the point for me, where I just get a little bit like, I get a little angry, I get a little spicy, because I'm always just a bit like, why? Like, if we can sit here and in 40 minutes come up and suggest with very simple and easy to find solutions, it surely can't be that much more difficult to get you to do it, considering you're a multi-billion-dollar company,
I will spend the rest of this time talking about this stuff and like how I wish they would change and all of those things. It's just like, it is just something that I very much agree. And when someone says something, just make the change. But instead, you chose not to. I will get so pulled into this thing. But I think that something that's fun or interesting for me, I guess, when we're talking about the storytelling of Dungeons and Dragons, is like, let's talk about alignment for a second. The idea of good and neutral and evil, and the immutability of that and the way that you can do an action that will change your alignment. There's like some storytelling that is so incredible that I just don't understand. There's something so very Christian imbued in this, that like the thing you're doing and then you are a bad person who does it. Like there's a lot of storytelling that like follows like these traditional fantasy tropes that are steeped in the idea of like some things that are good, and like, you know, someone showing up to redeem everyone. I mean, is how many times does that show up in our storytelling? And like that is truly only Jesus. Like that's his whole thing. Is going to redeem and save everyone, and maybe he dies and maybe he comes back. Like, I know that we talk about the Jesus figure all the time in fantasy. I mean, from anywhere from the Matrix to Star Wars. Like, I know that that's true, but I guess like it's something that I think about a lot, and the ambiguity of being able to do something that's a little bit different. I mean, it's very fun to do it and join the party, to think about the more shades of gray, to think about ways to examine how characters relate to each other, and conflict happens that are outside like traditional ideas of our storytelling and storytelling tropes. So
And I
no,
think,
it's fun.
and I think, to be honest, that's a source of a lot of stickiness. Like for me, like the alignment system and the fact that that still exists as a prism for reference for us when we play this game is still the source of stickiness for me. Because actually, I think I would feel a lot better about some of the stuff that's in these books that I have a problem with at the moment if there wasn't this kind of outright idea of good versus evil. Because for me, there is something so inherently, you know, one of my main issues with the Drow is the fact that they're still described as having an evil alignment. We're just talking about dark-skinned elves. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like there's an issue there. There's an issue there that you're inherently saying this thing is evil. The fact that golems are described as these kind of indestructible kind of rampaging monsters that cannot be stopped. It's like that's an issue, right? It's taking this like absolutism, and I think that like even just taking that language out, which seems to be honest so unnecessary and kind of shackling for a DM or a player to like tell you how to play this game, where the basis of the game is do whatever you want. It doesn't even seem like it needs to be there. You know what I mean? Like, I really genuinely don't think I've ever really gained anything by looking at the alignment. If it's a monster, it's gonna try and kill my players. It doesn't really matter whether it's an evil or a good monster. Like, it's there. It has a thing. Maybe it wants a thing from the players, or the players want something from it. Something's gonna happen. They're gonna fight. It doesn't really matter whether that thing is good or evil. Like, the players will find out for themselves. Like, that's the point. And then so I think a lot of that language is something that is just, I mean, we literally constantly talk about it on here, but it's just, we have to examine the necessity for that stuff, because it just doesn't feel like it is necessary.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it kind of to some degree depends on the game though. Like, because for example, in Lord of the Rings, I don't think it's an issue for most people to identify Sauron as a bad guy. Like, I think the issue is when you start trying to assign it to the people. I mean, even if Sauron is a guy, he chose to be that way and very much is that way now. And I think where a lot of people, at least what I've heard, where people will sometimes use the D&D alignment system is in regards to people who have made actual decisions. The issue comes when you try and slap it onto a whole category of person. But if we're saying like, if the process to become a lich involves you performing various atrocities, a person who is going to intentionally go through this process is probably going to be evil. Especially because it, like, you know, it kind of makes you that way. The issue comes if you're going to say, oh, all the elves of this category are bad, which is absolutely where that falls through. But I don't think that, I don't know, like, I feel like if you have a I don't know, like, most fiction dealing with like evil empires, for example, or does not spend a lot of time saying, well, this ideology is evil and the people leading this group are evil, but let's focus in on all of the good people who were part of this machine, which I think is valid. Like, I think you can do a valid story, but like, I think it's also depending on the story you're trying to tell. Like, I don't think it's useful in, for example, most Holocaust movies to focus in on all the nice Nazis
Oh,
like,
sure.
I'm sure there was somebody who was in the Nazi party who may have been a reasonable person out of the thousands or millions, but who cares? Like, that's not the point.
No.
Yeah,
The point of the
yeah,
story
yeah.
is the bad things that happened, and we're trying to stop the people doing the bad things. Now,
Well-
I do agree that that it can be overly reductive to just slap evil.
I think
onto,
it's more in the
like,
descriptors. I think that like that the issue that like in the sense that like something being just being described as like I don't know. Yeah, sorry, you carry on. I'm going to carry on formulating.
I
my
think,
opinion.
yeah,
I know what you mean.
I don't think that
I
there's-
definitely
yeah,
know
go
what
ahead.
you mean.
I don't think, yeah, like, it feels like I guess, well, this is where I'm coming from. As a Christian, it feels kind of like, hey, but sometimes it's good to say that bad things are bad.
Okay.
Like,
only-
and
yeah,
I
the
think
only
the
thing I'm
issue that we're
saying-
having, the issue that we're, let me guess at the issue, what you're trying to say first, is what you're trying to ultimately complain about is the overuse of the dichotomy of, like, saying you're either good, you're either bad, or you're a robot and neutral, or something like it. But you're either good or bad, and all these people are bad, all these people are good. There is no nuance allowed, and that I completely agree with.
Yes.
In terms of it's because it's way over applied.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, building
way,
on
way
what you were
over-applied.
saying before, Eric, actually, go ahead. You've been trying to speak for ages.
all I'm saying, it's about the dogma of it and understanding is, and Jasper, I'm actually, we talked about this a little bit in the kickback that we're about to do. I was thinking about how the difference between Christmas in the United States and in the UK. And in the United States, it's like, well, everyone can have a religion, but like, Christianity is best. And in the UK, it's like, wait, you're not celebrating Christmas? What? That is, what does that mean? That doesn't mean any sense. That doesn't make any sense to me. And it's more about just being aware that, like, there are, yes, it's about putting the label on it and immediately labeling people based on, like, you do good things and you do bad things, and that's it. And we could have a whole conversation about what sin means and all those conversations about, like, goodness and badness. It's more like I've noticed how those things have kind of seeped into storytelling, especially in, like, relying on traditional narratives that are that are just, like, easy and people are reaching for, like, you know, yeah, let's put a crusade in this story, or like the idea that
No
the
examination
dominant
of what the
religion,
Crusades were like.
like, the dominant religion in your fantasy story is just, like, reskinned Catholic Church. Like, those are the things that I spent a lot. I'm like, I don't understand this, and then I realize, oh, it's this thing I never was a part of. That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's the things that I'm pointing to. I'm also not saying it's bad. It's more like you can't just pour the same ingredients into the stew and tell me it's a new story. Like, that's the thing that I'm reaching for, and I just want. I'm trying to make people, or I'm trying to, like, understand and wrap my head around and talk about it a little bit.
I think this is something that happens so often in this podcast, that we bring people on and we have, Jeremy here to make sure that they can make intelligent points out of the things that ramble out of my mouth, which is really, really useful, to be honest. And I'm so glad that you guys are here in order to do that, to catch those things. But just to, I guess, to kind of wrap up on this point, and I would be interested to hear what the other halflings and you think, Eric, which is that I think for me personally, I think the good versus evil kind of argument purely does boil down to the lack of nuance that does exist within it. And I think that the biggest loss for me that I find is in the social mechanics, is that I think that it allows for such a lack of kind of again, if you're kind of playing the game in a very kind of, in a much more rigid way, because I think there's even scenarios where, like, even Sauron, like, if you're playing like an evil campaign, or like, even if you're playing an evil campaign, you walk up to Sauron, you'd be like, whoa, this guy's evil even for us. You know what I mean? Like, he's, woo, this is a bit far, dude. You know what I mean? Are you sure? And I think that even that having those levels for me feels like such an intrinsic part of my D&D experience, and a lot of the D&D experience that a lot of people I know have had, that it feels like such a shame that we're still so steeped in it. And not only that, but it comes with the extra baggage of, like, X race is good, X race is bad, etc., etc.
Yeah, I've never actually thought about that before, Jasper. The fact that, like, a race can be inherently evil or good is just so bizarre and so problematic. And also like you were saying, Jeremy, there's got to be some kind of intent behind it. You can't just slap that label on. Yeah, no, that's a lot to think about. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I feel like you could have a city of evil people. You know what I mean? Like you could just, it could be a real just crappy place where everyone's really angry all the
Real
time
mean,
and whatever. Like that's fine.
Kicking all
But,
sorts
like-
of things, trash and whatnot over. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not very evil,
Or
but
an
that's what
organization.
kick 'em
I
over.
think organization is easier because then it's a it's an opt-in
Yes.
situation.
Mm,
Because you
yeah.
could just be born in a city.
True.
And you're just like,
True, this is
here
true.
I am, just trying to live my life. And then it's like, well, sorry, bro.
I don't know. Have you been to London? I mean, people are rude.
But
People are rude.
People are
as a
rude.
citizen of this city, unfortunately, you are just automatically evil. Whereas it's like, I'm going to join this particular organization. It's like, well, that's a bad organization, and you are
Evil
therefore
Co.
bad. Yeah,
I'm sure this will be fine. This actually reminds me a lot of. Have you guys seen Inside Job? It's a
Good.
yeah, it's so good. It's like an animated show on Netflix, basically,
Oh, yeah,
where
yeah.
they where it's like the Illuminati is real, and every single conspiracy theory you can imagine, it's like this like team of people. It's like their job to make sure it continues, and that people like it's like chemtrails and all of that kind of stuff is all basically just comes out of this team, and they're the ones that put them out. And I think his name's Brett. I might be wrong, but he's basically this really happy guy that's just like, "Hi, I get paid in experience," and he's just like this really happy, kind of really nice guy in the middle of like literally the most evil corporation in the world. But I think you'd probably still have to say that Brett is pretty evil, given the fact that the things that he does, despite his cheery demeanor.
Despite him being a good boy, he's still evil.
Yes, despite him being a very good boy, he's still evil. Unless there was a dog there, in which case, screw you all, that's still a good
exactly.
boy.
The dog is a
and
good boy.
They are good.
I think the thing that I just saying is like I think just moving away from I agree with what Jeremy's saying is that like on one hand, yes, organizations and the things you do are what show who you are are what show who you are as a person. But I think that the things that bother me are the starkness between one and the other. Being assigned it at birth is what I understand to be what original sin is.
Yeah.
It's truly that, and that idea, and of course, like. Then the society or the organization that runs the place that you're in. When we talk about like the pervasiveness of many different religions, but easy one to reach to is the church and those things. So I'm talking about on a societal level. But again, what Jeremy is saying is like if you sit down and you're at a table with 10 Nazis, there are 11 Nazis at the table. Like that's also part of it. So I just want to I'm pushing on that and complicating it because it's also something that I see in like stories now that just like flummox me, and I'm like, well, we could have done that. You could have done something different that wasn't just like reaching for the same ingredients every single time. And also just like I think assigning things good and evil just from the jump, unless like the villain's the villain. The villain does bad things, and like that is something that kind of wrinkles my brain and understanding when you see like values that are expressed in that ways. I'm also talking about like in general, if you're Christian out there and you're an individual, you're fine. I'm not talking I'm talking about like in the way that especially America and Christian are the same in so many ways. Is something that really bothered that like when you say American and really it's something Christian or the other way around, is something that just like wrinkles my brain quite a lot.
Wrinkles my brain. That is a nice phrase which I shall be using. But I think one of the things that is which this conversation shows though is that this isn't a simple subject. This isn't a subject when talking about religion or race or anything like this within your games is not something that can just be. There's not like a one shoe fits all like a catch all for everything. And like, as we always say, it's about having a really good conversation with your players. And I think that the issue for us, and correct me if I'm wrong, usually lies in just like, it would be nice to know that some of these conversations were happening in other places outside of just like, shows and podcasts and things, but actually the decision makers who are in charge of kind of like propagating and selling, like you said, earning cold hard cash off of making those kind of decisions. It'd be nice to know that those conversations are also happening similarly to these ones. And I absolutely love the idea of getting, things wrong. Do you know what I mean? And
hire me. I'm a consultant. I have rates. Hire me. I'm right here, dog.
yeah. Go get Eric. Go get Eric.
Eric,
I'm right
how
here.
would you reform the way that D&D
Good question.
has ripped not Jews, oh my goodness, golems, Jewish mythology, and stuck golems into their framework, free of like its actual heritage, essentially?
It is an interesting question. First of all, you can hire me. I have my rate right here.
I'm ready.
You can instead of pick my brain. But I think, yeah, what we said, there are some pretty easy fixes right here, which I don't even know if will be necessarily meaningful. Because again, easy fixes are not meaningful because you could have done the easy fix the first time and you didn't. Is that either change the name of Golem to something else, or in the monster manual thing, change the way the folklore is written, saying like, yes, because like, again, cherry picking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some things are kinda, I see where they're going here, but other things are just like totally wrong. So it would be like, this is from a deity, you took the war, and there's the idea of language turning into life. So inscribing a name or a symbol somewhere on there, from a deity, whoever it is, instead of from this elemental plane of Earth. Which really feels like such a self-insert there from them. It just, every time I think about it, is just something so frustrating. And like, you can see that they're kind of reaching for stuff because the types of golems in the monster manual are clay, stone, flesh, and iron. So like, you have clay and stone are pretty close. Flesh is the Frankenstein thing because Frankenstein is a golem, and the iron golem, which is pretty close to robot. So like, but also like the flesh golem is so nasty. Like, I don't know if you've seen that photo.
Yeah.
It's like, it is like necromancy. It is truly necromancy. And like, that's not what we're going for here. It's like, if they were trying to be a little more intentional, they could just rewrite this thing. And again, I don't think it would take that much time. But it's up to them of whether or not they want to do that. They want to capitulate to the many people out there who buy their books and hate SJWs. If they want to if they hire someone and then listen to them because they say, but is it Dungeons and Dragons, which is something that like Chris Perkins has been quoted to saying before. So it's like, I don't know. Even if I was hired, and even if they paid me, and even if I told them and I spent the time, would they listen to me? And would they make the changes that I would make? I can only imagine all of the people who have talked to people at Wizards probably felt that way as well. I remember when Austin Walker was hired by them, and then he bailed out, and then he said he was hired by them, and like no one was listening to what he was saying. Like, I'm sure everyone has to deal with that always. And the various examples that y'all have covered on this show, like when eventually they bring in a minority person to say, "Hey, fix this." Is it mouth service, and then do they actually go and do it? That's just like the thing that's always that I always think about a lot, is like for all stripes and all types of people. Like, do you bring it in to check the box, and how much do you actually hear the person when whatever they said in that email, which is on the Wizard servers? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's somewhere there. You just need to dust it off because someone made some good notes on that meeting. You should go and reread them, check it over, assimilate a couple of those points. It wouldn't hurt. It definitely wouldn't hurt to do that.
Guys, I have to leave at 3, so I just have 10 more minutes.
Sure, that is absolutely fine.
I wish I could talk to you all forever.
No, that is I was genuinely was getting close to wrapping up anyway, so that is absolutely good and fine. So I think I think this is a topic that we could discuss for days on end, and I think this is only touching upon one religion, and one facet of that religion. You know what I mean? That has been the source of this entire conversation. There's clearly so much that needs unraveling here, and I as frequently I do when I get to these points in these discussions, I just go, maybe they should just start again. You know what I mean? I feel like they could just start again. You know what I mean? Build it from the ground up. It'd be cool. It'd be a very, very cool thing. But we have to, because it is obviously tradition on this show, Eric, is we have to ask you for a tale from the table. This can be anything. It can be a truly wild and bonkers story. It can be emotional and heartfelt. It can truly be anything that you like, but something that is memorable from a table TTRPG experience that you have had.
Oh, this is such a good question. I was going to pivot away from this and say it's been really odd for me because almost all of my DMing has been on a microphone. Like I started, like almost all of my DMing started with Join the Party campaign 1. We went all the way through in campaign 2. I started like a little game with some other people, just like kind of keep my mind, my reps sharp. It's funny, like I do see DMing like it's sports. Like I view myself like I'm in the gym putting up reps when I'm like DMing for friends, not on a microphone.
Oh, you can feel it when you get back into it. When you dip a toe back into it that first time, you feel yourself pulling a hammy. You're like, oh, okay. Yep, that was weird. That was a weird description I threw out.
So it's very fun. So like the things that I want to say are all things that we've done on a microphone. I think this is something that I was very proud of, is when my players get the best jokes in Join the Party episodes from like scenarios that I've built out. Because I very much see DMing, like I was a high school teacher. I got my high school, English education degree. I was a high school English teacher for a year all the way out in Brooklyn. I stopped doing it because there was a grade fixing scandal at my high school and I got very disillusioned.
Whoa. Wow.
So I do see DMing very much like I did teaching, is that like you are there. It's not, you're not there for you. You're there if you don't communicate the thing to the students, you're doing a bad job as a teacher. And that's how I feel as a DM, is like if your players don't have opportunities to flourish and to shine and to do wild shit and to say funny things, then like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Of course, also as a teacher, if you told me I was doing a great job, I would love it. I would fucking lap it up. I'd put it in a bottle.
Absolutely.
So I think that's something that that one of my favorite moments from Join the Party in campaign 2 is campaign 2. We are doing like a modern superhero story. It is set in Lake Town City, which is a very small town in upstate New York that a mad scientist discovered a new element up there, which then made the small town grow into a metropolis in the span of like 25 years. Now it's like the size of Portland, Oregon, like of multiple hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, sure. I have total head reference for that.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Yeah, happens all the time.
Of course.
I think I said
Oregon,
once that it was the size of it was either the size of Manchester or the size
Edinburgh,
of
didn't you?
Glasgow.
I think it's maybe it was Glasgow. Maybe it was Glasgow.
Glasgow, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
one of my favorites. So one of our players is using a druid subclass that I homebrewed called the Circle of Spirits. So his domain is death. So he went in and talked to his god of death. And I will tell you, it wasn't the god of death, and you might think. I'm not going to say who it is. But they went there and they had a whole conversation. And they hung out. And then he came back. And the first thing that one of my other players said is Val, played by Julia, who is like from Little Italy, is a barbarian, and just like 5 feet tall of rage, all put together, and also like very Roman Catholic. Came back and like, what, you talked to Saint Peter? How is he? Especially he did like 45 minutes of role playing with a different god of death, and the first thing Val said was, what, you saw Saint Peter? And I really love that. If you like more of those things, you can listen to Join the Party. I wish I had more. I told you the good ones, which is Julia crying. That's always the one that I usually share.
Sure. We already got that one in early.
I think this is like really cool though, that your tale from the table is like setting up somebody else to do something funny. I think that's really cool. Like that shows like that you're a really good DM. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Eric is a very, very good DM, which leads me into recommending that everyone go and listen to Join the Party, because it's a really, really fantastic fantastic actual play show, which I have had a lot of fun listening to. I was literally telling Eric before we started recording that JTP is one of the few actual plays that I still listen to, because now I do actual plays. I don't have as much time to listen to actual plays, but JTP is always downloaded on my phone, ready to go. So I thank you for that. But the important thing is, where can people find JTP and the stuff that you do, Eric, including you, on the interwebs?
Wonderful. Thank you, Jasper. You can find me on Twitter at L_Silvero, EL_SILVERO. It's my name if I was a Lucha Libre wrestler. That's where I am on Twitter. You can find Join the Party wherever podcasts are sold, and you can find us on Twitter at Join the Party Pod.
Nice. That just reminded me, I was watching a video of greatest Royal Rumble entrances the other day, and it was when Rey Mysterio came back, I think in like 2015 or 2016 or something. Ah, man, I lost my damn mind when that happened. Anyway, you can find us...
Hold on,
Yes.
wait. I just want to say, Campaign 2 is careening towards the end of Campaign 2 of the superhero story. We have really interesting ideas of what we're going to do next, so this is peak time for you to marathon all of the episodes of Campaign 2 and to catch up when we start wrapping up this, and then we're going to go do some other stuff.
And it's worth mentioning as well, JTP is like the easiest actual play to listen to. It is so smooth. Like, this show is so well edited. It sounds so premium. Like, to the point where you sit there at times and like, am I listening to an actual play, or is this just like a damn good radio play? Like, it is so good and smooth to listen to. So do not be put off by the idea of having to catch up. That is only a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm not taking shots at anyone, but look, Critical Role, there's a lot of hours, and it's just a lot. You know what I mean? It's just a lot. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It's a lot. It's a lot. I love it. But give me a Cliff Notes version. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, you can find us at 3 Black Halflings. That is the number 3 Black Halflings on Twitter. You can follow, I believe, Jeremy Cobb at
Jeremy Cobb 1 on Twitter. That's Cobb with 2 B's and the number 1.
Woo! And you can follow Olivia
At Does Dark Magic on Twitter.
Woohoo! And you can follow me at JW_Cartwright. If you like me, and if you like Eric, we're doing a kickback, which will be over on our Patreon in less than a week. It'll be out the Saturday after you listen to this, unless you listen to this after that Saturday, in which case it's already out. But, time is weird, and it's hard to do that kind of thing when you're recording a podcast, and, this is being released in the future, and you're hearing my voice at a later date than today. So, with all of that time weirdness out of the way, we want to thank once again our guest Eric Silver for joining us this week, and thank you all for listening. Of course, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode of 3 Black Halflings, and we will see you next week. So long, Shire folk.
So long, Shire folk.
So long, Shire folk.
Mom, get off the phone.
That was a HeadGum podcast.